Will Sukuna end up becoming the good guy at the end of the Jujutsu Kaisen story? I know that sounds too far-fetched of an idea to even consider, but why can't us fans believe that this scenario can actually be a legitimate possibility? The guy is an absolute menace. Yes, there is no denying about that, but I see a lot of similarities between himself and another character in Hao Asakura, and I have mentioned this similarity before. I have mentioned in previous videos that there is a chance that Akutami might take inspiration from Take and convert Sukuna into becoming a good guy right at the last minute, just like how Take did with Hao in Shaman King. And you can see some major similarities between both characters, even the way other characters speak about these two characters is similar. Matamune, who is the cat that Hao rescued 1,000 years ago, who becomes Yo's best friend, always mentioned how kind-hearted Hao was. It became a running theme towards the ending of the story in that Hao is actually a nice person, to the point where even Yo and every other character wanted Hao to end up becoming the Shaman King because they believed that there is still that kind-hearted person in there. When Hao's mom came at the end and slapped some sense into Hao, that was when Hao realized how much he messed up and decided to clean up his act. An ending like this, from face value, you would think is a cop-out of an ending because Take created such an overpowered beast of a character in Hao. There was no realistic way in actually beating him unless you do a bullshit power-up. So Take allowed his villain to be the winner of the Shaman tournament and be the Shaman King, whilst also having the seeds planted by other characters that Hao isn't such a bad guy. You had chapters where you can see Hao all alone by himself crying because of the death of his mum and how much he misses her. The story ended up humanizing a monster of a character in Hao into essentially becoming the king of the world. And the overall message and ending like this sends out is the hope and belief that people can change no matter how much bad they do. They can always come back into becoming good-hearted people. People are not born evil, but they can lose their way. But with the help of friends and family, they can always return to how they were before, which is where Yo and his friends, as well as Matamune and Hao's mom, came into play and converted Hao back to how he was before. That's my take on the ending of Shaman King. Is it cheesy? Yes, you can make an argument that it is, but it's an ending that can make you smile and be happy for a character like Hao. Now, will this happen with Sukuna in Jujutsu Kaisen? That is the question. Hao, in his first life, before he started doing his reincarnation, was the strongest shaman in the world and was a protector, and you can say a teacher for the local people. Look at his followers. He taught them how to be strong shaman fighters in the modern era. So there's proof there that he was a teacher. Look at Matamune. A normal cat ended up having all these powers, and it's all because of Hao. With Sukuna, you can see the same comparisons as well. Sukuna, in a way, is also a teacher. Look at Sukuna's fight with Megumi in Season 1. When they're both fighting, Sukuna says to Megumi, "When you strike me, put more curse behind it." Sukuna is literally teaching Megumi right here how to fight him. In the Shibuya incident arc, which every Jujutsu Kaisen fan has seen now, when Sukuna was fighting Jogo, he says to Jogo to stand proud and that he is strong, essentially making sure that he dies without having any regrets. Because prior to this fight, Jogo was feeling guilty because he couldn't protect his fellow disaster curses, as they're all dead apart from Mahito at this point. And Sukuna knows this, so he says the words that only someone idolized by other cursed spirits can say. Jogo ends up crying hearing those words, which is basically confirmation that all he wanted was recognition by Sukuna, and he got it from Sukuna himself. Even more so than Kenjaku, to be fair. The fight against Gojo, which was foreshadowed all the way back from episode 2, and in the next episode, Sukuna says to Gojo that Gojo will be the first one he kills, with Gojo replying back to him saying that it's such an honor to be targeted by the great Sukuna. So a heated rivalry was set up right at the start of the series between both of these characters. I've even made a video detailing the anticipation and the build-up of this fight in a long video, so do go and check that video out if you haven't already. A lot of hard work went into that video, if I do say so myself. But there is a rivalry here between both of these characters. During the Gojo vs Sukuna fight in chapter 233, Sukuna used Agito and Mahoraga against Gojo and stated that this fight is now a 3-on-1 fight. Now, as much as Sukuna was holding back against Gojo, Gojo did push Sukuna a lot in this fight, and in chapter 236, when Sukuna did slice him up, Sukuna says to Gojo that he was magnificent and that he will never forget him for as long as he lives. This is a massive compliment to a guy that was primed to be Sukuna's rival in this modern era. There was trash talk between both of these characters before the fight, Gojo calling Sukuna the challenger. Sukuna then calling Gojo just another fish and a disappointment. Both of these characters were also trading insults as well as devastating attacks to each other. So for Sukuna to then acknowledge Gojo as a strong fighter and show him respect just before his death is similar to the scene before with Jogo. Jogo felt he was useless and pathetic, and Sukuna calls him strong. Gojo, in the very chapter he died, feels guilty and sad that he couldn't push Sukuna to use his full strength. And this was at the beginning of chapter 236, after the airport scene where Gojo says his monologue to Geto, and when he admitted that he feels bad because he wasn't pushing Sukuna to the extreme. Sukuna immediately after, in the same chapter, says Gojo was magnificent and that he will never forget him. Sukuna could have easily done the typical villain monologue and just laugh at Gojo. We have seen Sukuna laugh endlessly before. Look at his fight with Mahoraga. He was smiling throughout that entire fight. When Junpei got transformed into a transfigured human, Sukuna was laughing out loud against Yuji when that moment happened. So it's within Sukuna's character for him to gloat and laugh at Gojo for failing to defeat him. But instead, he chooses to compliment him and make sure that those are the words that Gojo hears before he dies. And again, in chapters 246 and 247, Sukuna is fighting Higuruma and is impressed with Higuruma's natural born talent and made him use reverse curse technique on himself in order to heal himself. And again, just like Megumi back in season 1, you can see that Sukuna was teaching Higuruma here and not actually fighting him. Against Kashimo, Sukuna tells him his secret to staying strong, which is that love is pointless and the humans that he consumes gives him the satisfaction he needs in place for love. So in a dark, tormented way, he's almost trying to recruit Kashimo and tell him, look bro, there's no point in seeking love just to cover up the fact that you are lonely and are living in solitude just because you are the strongest. It's because you are the strongest which will allow you to have the freedom to do whatever you want. Sukuna is evil, so him being the strongest, which gives him the freedom to murder and consume whoever and whatever he wants, won't be burdened by the life of solitude that Kashimo and Gojo endured. It's because they are the good guys and can't just go on a mad rampage because they can, or if they're just feeling that urge to cause harm. Both of them are not like Sukuna. If anything, Kashimo and Gojo are sort of restricted because they are the strongest. And Sukuna is the only one who is free out of the three of them. So even then, that scene in chapter 238 with Sukuna and Kashimo, when Sukuna says to him that love is pointless, Sukuna is basically telling him how to defeat the loneliness and solitude of being the strongest. Sukuna is a teacher, just like Hao, and both of them also had a past life. Both of them had characters commenting on the struggle they are currently having. Gojo was talking about how Sukuna is living a life of loneliness and without love in chapter 236, and he was hoping that he could show him another way of life. Kashimo also questioned him when he fought him. Yorozu, when she fought Sukuna while she was inside of Megumi's sister's body, wanted to love Sukuna and make sure that he would never be alone. With Hao, all the characters mentioned the same thing with Sukuna, in that Hao was a kind-hearted character that is now lost and needs to find his way again. Take humanized Hao for him to eventually have a mini redemption arc at the end of the story, whilst with Sukuna, as much as he had caused mass murder throughout the story, similar to Hao, there is goodness within his character in that he is the teacher / inspirational mentor figure for all of these characters. Whether they are curse spirits like Jogo or Jujutsu sorcerers like Kashimo and Gojo, the seeds have been planted. Would it be a good thing if Sukuna turns into a good guy? Me personally, I would love for him to finish off the story as the main bad guy. Sukuna has been such a menace, and the evil acts he has done, especially the psychological trauma he has done on Yuji, Sukuna cannot be redeemed. It's the whole, hey brat, take a good look, back when Sukuna caused the massacre and switched back, letting Yuji take back control of his body, or Yuji to then witness the horror Sukuna has caused. That scene for me cannot be reversed. Sukuna needs to end the story as the bad guy, and Yuji needs to get payback for that moment in Shibuya. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below if you think Sukuna will end up being a good guy by the endgame of the story, or do you think he will remain a bad guy? I look forward to reading your comments, and just as your tribal chief always says, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.